we are graced today with political royalty. I made that up. I like
so
that. Graced by political royalty.
Blanca
O'Leary is joining us. Blanca is the chairperson of the Pitkin County Democratic Organization. She is a member at large of the Democratic National Committee, and she has had the thrill of participating in the last two Democratic National Conventions. One as a delegate and one as a superdelegate. And if you'll think back to some of our earlier shows, the theme has been get active, get involved. We say on every show, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Blanca is not just political royalty. She's someone who stepped up. She's active in politics. And that's one of the things we want to start talking about today, in fact, Blanca. We're going to talk about how did you get started in politics and what you've accomplished and how other people can get started.
Steve, first of all, thanks for having
Sure.
me. It's quite a treat to be here. You're the political royalty. You're the one with the published book, not
There
me.
you go.
I'm from El Paso, Texas. I'm the eldest of five kids, and my father was politically active. He's an engineer. He wasn't politically active as much as I am. I mean, he had a full-time job, 5 kids to raise, things like that. But a friend of his was running for the office of state representative in El Paso. So he dragged us, the oldest kids, over to go help Paul do door knocking to get people out to vote for Paul, and we won. And so I was 11 and a half or 12 at that time. So I got the bug then, and this is really great. And these were things that my dad had been telling us for so long, that you needed to participate. And
by the way, your dad did a great thing by getting you active.
Oh, thank you. He's still alive. He might.
Is he still active?
Yeah, in his own way. He's 80 years old, 80 plus years old. So he's active in encouraging all of his children to stay involved. But then after that, our next big race was when Sissy Farenthold ran for governor of the state of Texas. And that, first of all, a female governor. There hadn't been a female governor since Ma Ferguson. So it was quite exciting. And of course, she was very progressive. And we lived in a very conservative neighborhood. As a matter of fact, we were the only Latino family from 1st through 8th grade. But my father had a gigantic Sissy Farenthold sign. We had a backyard fence that people could see it coming up the road. With great visibility. So it taught me all about visibility, big signs, how cheaply, a cheap sign could really make so much of a difference. And we had campaigned actively for Sissy, who of course lost, but who remains a friend of our families. So that really perked things up for me. I mean, not only does really campaigning involved door-to-door, nitty-gritty, getting out on Saturdays instead of watching cartoons, but also women should be running. And then, of course, there was a big dry spell when a lot of women weren't running. But I got that idea in my head since I was pretty young. I was 12, 13 years old at that time.
Okay,
that's
so
where I got
at some point we have to get you from Texas to Aspen, and then we have to get you to be in charge of the party here. So let's make that leap and talk about how you...
That'll go fast. I went to the University of Texas at El Paso, in Austin, excuse me. When I went there for undergraduate law school, I clerked for the Court of Appeals. I met my future husband at UT Austin, and we were married after I graduated from law school. We moved to Houston. We'd been coming here over the summers for a long time. He worked for a big law firm. He became a lawyer after me. He worked for a big law firm, and he didn't really like working for a big law firm, but the only time he was happy was here in Aspen. So, he did this for about 15, 17 years. We all talked, and he was not happy except for being here. And so we decided to make the leap, and that's how he came. Moving from one of the biggest states in the union to one of the smaller states in the union, where in Houston there were 4 million people population, and here there's 4 million in the whole state. That was a big shock. So I had to find something that I was going to be involved with, and I was very involved in politics in Texas, so it was natural to become very involved.
So what was
here.
the party like when you got here? Was it very active and organized, or is that something that you kind of took over?
I think when you're the chairperson, that's the cool thing about being the chairperson.
Yeah.
You bring your identity to the party. We had a very hardworking, long-serving chair, Camilla Auger, who had done a beautiful job for a long, long time, and and she, everyone knew her, and in the state, all the state officials knew her. She was active with a lot of the candidates. When candidates came, she helped with organizing their events. But she had a different perspective on how that was done, and Camilla served for a long time. And then when it became my turn, I came in when Barack Obama had been doing a lot of grassroots, and that was my attraction. Besides the fact that he was against the Iraq War, my other attraction to his campaign was that he wanted to do grassroots, and grassroots was going to be the main focus of his campaign, and it was in 2008. And
explain quickly for our viewers, when you talk grassroots, what do you mean?
that means door knocking.
Door knocking,
That means
okay.
door knocking. It doesn't only involve the big fancy fundraisers, which we need, we have to have, and that's what makes it so powerful here in Aspen, because that's why people listen to Aspen, because we do host good fundraisers. But we also, we have a lot of voters here that are Democratic voters, but if we don't get them to the polls, then your voice isn't heard. So your voice is heard in Denver by the fact that we can get a lot of voters to the polls here in the Roaring Fork Valley.
And have you been successful at that? Have you increased
Yes.
turnout and registration?
Yes. The registration was already pretty good in Aspen. We did increase the registration, but our percentage for the presidency went up dramatically under President Obama's elections, both of them, a little bit higher in 2008 than in 12, as a matter of fact, but that was something around the whole country. But it was the highest for a Democratic candidate for president since Kennedy. So yeah, we did quite well. So
awesome.
Yeah, it isn't because of us, just only because of us. It is because our candidate was very popular in 2008.
Well, I know it's a
lucky.
candidate, but I've worked in enough campaigns to know it's the people on the ground, like you said, it's the grassroots, it's knocking on the doors, and you've obviously built an organization to accomplish this. So
We did
your
do
credit.
that. We did do that.
So you do grassroots work, a lot of fundraising. What else do you do when you're wearing your chairwoman's hat?
Well, you do want to work on increasing participation. You and I have spoken about that. There are lots of ways to do that. You try some ways, and sometimes they don't work out, and then you try others and that do work out. And sometimes a beer kegger bus thing works one season, and it doesn't work another season. So you just keep trying, and you calibrate your events according to that. Other things that are just practical things, such as the caucuses. The caucus is coming up for here, March the 4th. That'll be both for the Republican Party and the Democratic Party of the state of Colorado.
And again,
it's
when
March
you're talking
4th.
caucus, this is the equivalent of the primary?
That's correct, but we're a caucus state.
Right.
So yes, correct. And so that does bring participation from the party loyalists, more of the party loyalists, because it brings all your precinct captains together and they have
So
their
do you
caucus.
run that? I haven't been to a
Yes.
caucus.
Yes,
you
we
lead
do
the
run it.
caucus.
See,
I mean,
yes.
Blanca leads the caucus.
Blanca leads
okay.
the caucus for the
Awesome.
Republican Party. Frida
No,
Wallison
Frida does
does.
Republican, you do
I mean,
Democrat.
for the Democratic Party, excuse me, Frida Wallison does it for the Republican Party. Blanca O'Leary
If you
does
guys
for the
switch
Democratic
places for the caucuses, who knows what would happen, right?
Party. Yes, I don't think that it would be interesting, but yeah, that would be very funny too. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen.
So you definitely keep busy. Being
I do. We do another thing. For the State of the Union, I've done almost every State of the Union that I've been the chair. We've done the State of the Union Watch Party, which is really a fun party. It's not a fundraiser. You don't have to work. You just get to go. Everybody brings appetizers and soft drinks and wine and beer, and we watch the State of the Union address.
Okay.
The last time we had a call in from the president, because the president, we signed up to be an official party, and so the president calls in to all the official parties, and then we just get to discuss what went on, and we're political junkies, some of us, and so just to be able to chat and have like a little salon afterwards is something fun, and it doesn't cost anything, and it's just a fun thing. So we do the little events like that throughout the year too.
So let's do a quick commercial for you. Anyone's interested in reaching out to you and getting active in the local Democrats and, again, becoming part of the game or getting involved here, how do they find you?
There's 2 or 3 ways. We have our website, which is pitkincountydemocrats.org. That's the website. On Facebook, we are the Pitkin County Democratic Party on Facebook. Also, they can email me, and that's how most people do. And my email is blancain, blanca.aspen@aol.com. So,
Are you the only Blanca in Aspen?
yes, I am, in the United States.
I'm the only Steve Nemirovsky in the United States.
Yes,
so
yes.
we got
So,
something
yes,
in common there, right?
Yes, yes.
Interesting. All right, so I want to switch gears a bit now because one of the things we haven't talked yet about the show, which I think disturbs so many people in politics right now, is the lack of civility.
Right.
You know, you watch these news shows, and I think they're horrible, whether it's a Democratic-leaning show or Republican-leaning show, or if you want to call it liberal versus conservative. Half the show is messaging, and the other half of the show is just trying to trash the other guys. You know, everybody's extreme, everybody's destroying the universe, and I find that, and I think most people don't find that reprehensible. And then we have the campaigning that goes on. We have these soundbite commercials, and so many of them are on the attack, right? So you've been doing this, well, you said you got in at 11, so you've been doing this for at least 10 years, right?
Yes, yeah.
What are the changes that you've seen over the years, and how we got from, I think, a time when we argued politically. By the way, I'm not against dysfunction and polarization, but I'm for then you come together and solve problems. How did we lose that? How did we lose the civility, and how did we get on this track of blame? So what's your perspective on that?
I don't think there's one answer, and I wouldn't think you would think that either. It's much more nuanced than that. I think one of the roots of it, though, is that compromise has become a dirty word. I've been reading this interesting book that Chris Matthews, of all people, put out. But he worked for Tip O'Neill when Tip was the Speaker of the House, who was an incredibly progressive person. And Ronald Reagan was obviously the president at that time, who was a very conservative president. But they all got along. And
so we're talking in the 80s.
We're talking in the 80s. And
you weren't even born yet. So,
yeah, yes, I'm 56 years old. I was very born. But they both said that they stopped politics at 5 p.m. and then they would even have cocktails often. That doesn't happen anymore. It was a plus at that time to be able to compromise. Ronald Reagan didn't always get what he wanted from Congress. Congress didn't always get everything they wanted from the president. They knew they couldn't pass a bill and send it to the president's desk that was too progressive or too liberal. The president would veto it, and vice versa. The president did know how to compromise and give on certain, even on major pieces of legislation. This happened quite often. Actually, it happened until, I think, the rise of the Tea Party. And I respect the fact that
You think it took all the way to the rise of the Tea Party? Because some people would say it may have started with Gingrich in the 90s.
Of course, yes.
And then,
that part,
and then,
yes.
And then the Democratic response under Clinton. So some people would put it back to the mid-90s.
Yeah. The lack of civility has steadily been coming up. That is correct. But the lack of compromise, the total 100% lack of compromise, just happened recently. I mean, it hasn't been, even in the years with Gingrich and Clinton, they did pass legislation. When you see the charts, we've all seen the charts of the amount of legislation that has been passed under this Congress versus every other Congress combined, and you see the part, you know, the bar graph. Everybody else is like up here, down around, and the bar graph for them last Congress is down here. Right. It's because there is no compromise. I mean, it's come to a complete halt. I'm not saying that there hasn't been lack of civility before. Yes, of course there has been. But this complete halt of compromise so that we can't pass any legislation, that is a pretty recent phenomenon. So we had this
growing phenomenon, but you think it's this recent Tea Party stuff that's kind of pushed us over the edge.
And the Tea Party alone isn't responsible. I mean, we did have to have that lead up of the two parties not getting along and the lack of civility. But people also say that there's 100% parity. I don't think there is always 100% parity as to who's the most guilty, because I think sometimes it goes back and forth, I would imagine. But I mean, on Fox News, there is not one TV host that has a 3-hour program that's a liberal. On MSNBC, even though the conservative people despise it, there is a 3-hour host who is a star of MSNBC, Joe Scarborough, who has a 3-hour program, who pretty much gets to talk the entire time. That there is no counterpart of that to Fox News. I'm not going to tell you that MSNBC is the benchmark of all 100% balance, but they're much more balanced than Fox News, and so. I know you wearing a Democrat hat about 100% of the time. But see, this is where I blame both parties, and I'll give you two examples that I think bother most people.
you have the situation, and it really came to a fever pitch lately in the Senate when they did the nuclear option thing. But you had this since, again, I think back to Clinton, where we've had, Democratic, now Republican, then Republican, now Democratic president. And when the president are making their nominations, whether it's to the court or an office, the other party is doing everything they can to block that.
Correct.
But both parties are doing it to each other.
Exactly. But the percentage of people that were confirmed under Bush and Clinton were much higher than the percentage
Right, it just keeps getting worse and worse.
Yes, but never has there been the dramatic drop-off that there is under Barack Obama.
No, but I'm saying, I get that. What I'm saying is, but each party keeps doing it to each other. And even on the debt ceiling, same thing. When Bush wanted to extend the debt ceiling, we have these tapes of our current president, giving speeches against that, and then he becomes president, and now the Republicans attack him. So what I'm saying is, it's been building and building.
This is where I'm coming back to. There is no parity. That is correct that they said that, but that never, ever came to the brink. And no Democratic controlled Congress would have done the same thing that our Congress did, this Republican controlled Congress did under President Obama.
So how do we get out of this pattern? How do we...
I'm not certain, but I will tell you.
What are your ideas?
I'm not certain, but something interesting happened last night, and I think you might have heard it this morning. Glenn Beck went on and admitted that he thought it was fun and that he kind of apologizes for being so divisive and dividing the country.
Well, that's a good start.
Yeah, and Glenn Beck wasn't alone. I mean, I know there's people on both sides, but that's an interesting start.
Sure.
He was one of the most successful people leading the charge on his side of the opinion polls. So that's quite interesting to see that happen. We'll see how that.
You know what's nice about that, and what I think in this lack of civility, people aren't able to say they're sorry or they made a mistake anymore.
Yeah.
Where did we lose that? When did we lose the ability to say I was sorry, I made a mistake?
Perhaps television.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. The other thing that does happen, and maybe this might bring it back down again, is I go back to the Tea Party because there are a lot of moderates in both parties. There are a lot of moderate Republicans. However, they are so afraid of being primaried by a Tea Party person that calls them too liberal, which is ridiculous because they are not too liberal, that they will not take any stance that would be seen in the least bit compromising. And that, I think, has really helped polarize the Republican Party to a party that doesn't even allow any moderates. The Democrats did that too in the 70s and early 80s, and then you saw us have terrible results because of that. So we went through that too, but now I think that our counterparts are doing that. Our friends on the Republican side are doing that, and they're allowing the minority, which is the Tea Party, to call the shots, and I think that really hurts a lot of civility. That hurts compromise. I'm not telling you that the Democrats are blameless. I'm just telling you that the Tea Party controlled Republican Party is.
I agree with you. Right now, the Republican Party seems to have a dynamic that's working against them. But as you said, and I find this to be the case, not something I've done a study of, when the party that's in power of the presidency, such as you are now, the party usually says, we got to get our act together because we're running the country. A little more. Yeah. But then you said when you're in the cycle where the Republicans have the presidency, that's when I find the Democrats seem to be a little more in disarray because they're trying to find their identity somewhat. So I think that does go back and forth, but it's still not a recipe for the civility I'm looking for. Let me throw you a curveball here. So I do a lot of work back in Illinois. I do a lot of lobbying. And there are women in the legislature, great ladies. They do a great job of lobbying. And one of their things they say is we have a male governor back there, a male head of the House for both caucuses. The Speaker is a male, the head of the Republicans is a male, and then the head of the Senate. Now we have a female minority leader in the Senate, but they say when these guys get in a room, there's too much testosterone. Now, you were talking about women before. Do you think having more women elected for both parties could help strike some of the balance and bring some civility? Do you think we have to find a way to do something like that?
I definitely do. Also, it isn't just because it's more women. Also, it's more of a diversity and people that are governing that really reflect more of what the population looks like. Since 50% of our population minimum is female, it only makes sense from that standpoint. The other thing that does happen, you'll see that a lot of women the U.S. Senate have said both Republican and Democratic women, female senators, are the ones that really push to have a budget deal come. Even before Patty Murray was in the budget deal with Paul Ryan. So yes, I do really think that women do push for consensus more. I know we're going to get in trouble with our male counterparts, but you know,
I started it.
I'm used to that. Then we also have something very interesting in the Colorado Senate. Do you know that our state Senate has majority female? It's one of the few.
Did not know that.
Maybe the only state Senate in the United States at this moment that has majority female. So, and then we passed some pretty wonderful pieces of legislation together with our governor. You know, during the last session, it was a monumental session here in the state of Colorado. That could be part of it.
So is that something when you're wearing your
women
hat
get things done
as a chairwoman? I'm not going to fight you on that.
Yes, yeah.
I can't fight my wife on it either, right? Do you get involved in selecting candidates, and do you try and help find women candidates?
Very much. We try to, as a party chair, all party chairs have done this before, and that is part of our role, is to try to always seek candidates to fill the seats and fill vacancies. Because we haven't had a lot of women before, I've always tried to recruit more women. We're very lucky that running for Senate right now, but unfortunately, our wonderful Senator Gail Schwartz is term limited. So there is another female running, and her name is Carrie Donovan. She is a rancher and a teacher and a ski instructor from the Vail Valley. Her family is a very old ranching family, very young, dynamic, very thoughtful person, and you will be seeing her here a lot. So we've Gail helped recruit her. Our state representative is Millie Hamner, and she's also female. So we do have a lot of good female representation within our state part here from our Roaring Fork Valley. We haven't had a female mayor in a long time, though, too. So I mean,
interesting.
So
so you think if we had more females, and again, I don't want to overgeneralize or label male female here. Will that help on the campaigning side? Because again, we don't have any civility on the campaigning. Do you think the female component to elections maybe ratchets down a little?
It does often. It does often. I would venture to say, you know, vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin didn't do that, but she's an anomaly, because I do think both females on both sides, Republicans and Democratic females, you do see their candidacies be a little bit more civil.
So we have at least one solution today. We're going to go find more females to run for office, and maybe more female executives. How many female executives do we have at the governor level? Do you have any idea?
Do you mean within the governor's cabinet?
Yeah, with 50 governors. How many do you
have? Female governors. I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe 5, 6. So,
yeah, not many there.
Yes, not many.
All right, you'll be pushing for that, right?
Yes. Well, we will soon. Right now, Governor Hickenlooper, we're very much a big supporter of
I didn't mean just Colorado.
Yes,
but you're in the national committee.
Correct.
So.
Yes.
All right. Well,
I also serve with and help Emily's List, which is Early Money is Like Yeast, which is a very large nonprofit that helps women become women candidates win office on all levels. So I mean, it's on local levels, state levels, and of course national.
I think we could just do a 1-hour introduction on everything you do.
Yeah, we're going to also have more civility, I think, when we have a female president, which may be happening.
You may get that too.
Yeah. So
in closing, before the show started, you and I were talking about some of the issues of dysfunction and polarization, and you brought up something that's very important to me. I've talked about on the show: registering to vote.
Correct.
And getting active.
Yes.
So
I do kid my friends, and I think you said you do a version of it too. If they are eligible to vote and they're not registered, they're not registered and they don't vote, they don't get to gripe. If you don't vote, you don't gripe.
So we're going to do a quick commercial right now for people who live in Pitkin County. Tell them how to get registered.
Well, it's really easy. It's pitkinvotes.org, pitkinvotes.org, and our county clerk, Janice, is an excellent county clerk. They have a wonderful website. Wonderful website.
Another woman running the show.
Now that's why we're so organized. It's a very user-friendly, very easy way to register to vote. If you're a mom and you have a 17-year-old in your household, encourage them to go online. 17-year-olds can now pre-register.
How long does it take, start to finish, to register to vote?
It's taken most of the times when I do this, maybe 2 minutes for people.
A whole
Just have
2
your,
minutes, right?
Have your driver's license
Okay.
ready. It took about 2 minutes.
Could be-
We do it a lot. We used to do it at the farmers market. So we do
Could be
this a
like one
lot.
of those commercials on TV, you know, where they're sitting there and they're doing all their banking while
Yes,
they're cooking dinner and doing
exactly.
everything else. So
Yes.
we can get the whole family registered to vote in
yes,
2
Mom.
minutes, right?
Yes, Mom. Yes,
Okay.
we do. We have we do have. It's quiet right now, but we are going to have a very competitive U.S. Senate race for Senator Udall. We're going to have a very competitive state Senate race here with Carrie Donovan.
People should register to
Yes,
vote.
you need to register, and the governor's race is going to be competitive.
Well, it's always
Thank
wonderful to be graced by royalty.
Oh,
Thank you for
Steve,
joining
stop.
us. and
Thank you very
please come
much.
back
It's
and
a
visit us
pleasure.
again.
Thank you for
Okay.
having me.